What did you think of Jennifer Kelman?
I want to be best friends with her.
I know I am. I am best friends with her. She's my best friend.
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just feel so inspired. And I feel like, too, the way that she described her parenting and how she offers access, but does it in such a way that is controlled by the parent. Kids are developing, they're learning. We cannot do free reign, but also how do we teach them about all of these dangers of the internet and really equip them so when they are 18 and they get their full reign because they are an adult, they are aware of all this stuff. I loved her approach, spoke to my heart. I love what she's doing.
I feel like I finally heard an approach to introducing a phone that I would maybe do myself. You know, She has 14-year-old twins and has been introducing the phone to them and introducing bits of social media. And I think parents are really going to resonate with the way she approached this and have a roadmap for how they might want to introduce phones for their kids.
Exactly. She made it such a big point, and this is what I resonate with so much, is that open discussion, that trust, that communication where your kid will see something and go to you and be like, hey, I got a weird message. I feel uncomfortable, or I don't know what to do here. That's all what we need, right?
Yeah. She's hilarious also.
Yeah, she's so funny.
God, I can't wait for listeners to hear this episode.
It's fantastic.
So we're going to go ahead and jump into this episode with Jennifer Kelman.
Yeah, let's do it.
Enjoy. I'm Nikki, an ex-social media manager.
And I'm Ashley, a licensed teen therapist and parent coach.
Welcome to Scrolling to Death, a podcast for parents worried about social media. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Scrolling to Death. Today, we are joined by Jennifer Kelman from Florida. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. This is fun.
Of course. So Jennifer is a mental health expert on JustAnswer and a licensed clinical social worker with a private psychotherapy practice specializing in relationships, parenting, and children's mental health issues. You, Jennifer, have over 30 years of experience in the mental health space. You have a children's book. You've lectured extensively around the country on a range of issues, including relationships, parenting, body image, children's mental health. So first, I was really interested in your work with JustAnswer. So you've been providing support to people on that platform for over a decade. And I haven't used that platform personally. So I was wondering if you can tell us how that works, how you provide support there.
Well, first off, again, thanks so much for having me.
Sure.
When you said that I've been doing this for over 30 years, you just made me feel ancient. And
I'm
then
sorry.
saying that I've been with JustAnswer for over a decade. Goodness, we now talk in terms of decades, but yes, both are true. JustAnswer is an incredible platform. I stumbled upon it by accident over a decade ago because I was looking for help with some computer issues. Didn't realize that I could become an expert through their mental health platform and their relationship platform. And the beauty of JustAnswer is that someone can come who needs some, I like to call it hand-holding, some support, and be paired up with whether it's me or another expert on the site, and people can come back and request me again and get that support without it having to be a long-term therapeutic situation, because not everybody has access to that, depending upon where they live or finances. So JustAnswer has made it incredibly easy and accessible for anyone at any time, 24/7, to get that extra hand-holding and support. And I love it. It allows me freedom. Ashley, you know that when we're just coming off of clients and sometimes we rush to another appointment or children or whatever. You know, there have been times I've been at a red light and I've been responding to people on JustAnswer.
That's awesome.
So people can submit questions or issues and then you give them advice from there.
Correct. And one of my most favorite aspects of it is that you can request the expert that you've worked with before. So I've actually had people coming to me for this over the decade. That will be the joke. We'll continue to say it that way for over a decade that request, you know, for therapist Jen only, that's my handle. And it comes to me and, you know, we have a great simpatico based on years of history. And it's not therapy. It's just some short-term, hey, Jen, I'm going out on a date and I'm nervous. You know, my dating history, what should I do? You should relax and just enjoy yourself. You get nervous beforehand and you write to me the next day and you tell me what a great time you had.
Yeah.
Do you have a most common question you get?
That was my next question, Ash. Good one.
And those are common questions, what you just asked. Yes, there are sort of repeat patterns. The most common for relationship is, I've ended my relationship. I think I made a mistake. How do I get my ex back? That is easily the number one question that comes in terms of that. And as you both know, there's no easy answer to that or quick fix because the issues need to be worked through, whatever led to that ending to begin with. Oftentimes it's tough because people want to come and get that quick magic answer and think that therapist Jen can just say, go do this, this, and this, and he or she is going to come back quickly.
Yeah.
In terms of the parenting stuff that I get most often on JustAnswer, it is about screen addiction, screen time, battling with their children, how to set the boundaries, what can they do differently to get their child re-engaged with the world around them that isn't through a device. And that is really the most often and the most challenging question for many reasons. I think the most simple for me to answer it is to say that it becomes a boundary issue. And what I've noticed over time, the pattern is that parents are having difficulty setting this boundary because of the fear of missing out. Are they harming their child if they take it away or don't give it at all? How are they going to communicate with their friends? Since we've talked about how ancient I am, I can refer back to the 70s growing up and knowing that, kids rolled up to your home on a bike and there were 20 bikes on the lawn and people hung out and kids hung out all day. And that's changing. And that has changed, sadly, because those were the days.
Better time.
Ice cream wasn't a nickel then. My parents used always that. So how do we negotiate that space in between the good old days in the 70s and rolling up to someone's lawn and playing till the streetlights came on to the new way of children with devices and helping them connect in a different way? To reflect back again on what I see mostly with JustAnswer is how do you, as a parent, as a caregiver, find that balance for your children in giving them some leeway, but also keeping them engaged in life. And we'll talk more about Pinwheel, that I believe I have found that with my children, even if there is some pushback, but there are ways to do it that protect your children, keep them safe from the online issues, but also give them some leeway.
Yeah.
When I'm seeing people, whether it's on JustAnswer or in my private practice, they are at their wits' end. And parents and the child are at their wits' end. The child, teenager, is struggling because they want more. And so there are these constant battles. And the parent is reaching out in desperation, feeling exasperated, what to do next, how to find that boundary, how to give, but also protect.
Right.
Parents do come back and find that when they have been able to negotiate that space and find that common ground, that their child is happier. Their child is feeling less stressed, because sometimes the opposite is true. The kids are feeling they need to be involved and they're over involved and they're waiting for the likes and they're waiting for the invitations, or they see their friends at a beach and they weren't invited.
Right.
You remove that and all of a sudden, if I can't see it, I don't really know. And I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
And I've had a grand old time to begin with. So that's the success, when you can find that space and see that your child is lighter on their feet, lighter emotionally, and doing okay without being attached to this device or the likes or knowing where their friends are at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And usually in the beginning, it does take a little bit, right? There's screen time withdrawal period. I've had a couple teenagers tell me they've taken a social media detox, and the first week was really difficult. And then after the second, third week and in the month, they felt so much better. And then it almost clicked for them, like, wow, this does work. Unplugging and detoxing from this, right?
I love the way you say it, and I've actually done a fair amount of articles with JustAnswer on this digital detox. And the interesting thing about what you said, Ashley, is that it's tough initially. And I don't think there are many teenagers that would admit this, but they almost want it because they're so entrenched and so needing to be needed, needing to be accepted, that it becomes this vicious cycle that if they're not on it, they're wondering. But if they're on it, they are aware of what they're looking for and aware that the power that exists through the device or social media to influence how they feel about themselves. And self-esteem has now become part of what we get from the device, as opposed to, again, the old days of rolling up on the lawn or playing a sport and being connected in a different organic way that lends itself to self-esteem.
Yeah.
So as much as the kids, teenagers, whatever, fight, it's almost as if they're begging for that external help and control over it because they want the freedom from it. They might not say it. And trust me, I have 14-year-old twins and we use the pinwheel phone for them. And, there is some comments underneath where I've said, oh, take a photo. That's beautiful. Sure, we'll take it on my phone, even though the camera's not so great. Okay, not a problem.
A little grumbling.
At least you've got a phone to take a photo with.
Right? Come on.
When it's all pixelated. No, I'm kidding. The camera's just fine.
Yeah.
But of course, she's saying that underground because it's not the latest and greatest iPhone, but it's a perfect, beautiful pinwheel phone that gives what's needed, but also is protective at the same time.
Yeah. How important do you think it is that parents are mirroring the behavior that they want their kids to follow? Because I find a lot of parents are addicted to their phones, right, and to social media. And so in the home, they're telling their kids not to be on their phones and to connect face to face, yet they are on their phones all day. So is that often a first step?
It's like a yes and no, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because remember, I'm ancient, which means my prefrontal lobe is more developed than my teenager.
Right.
So although we could easily say, well, we're addicted to our phones also, there is a difference. And we do have the experience more years on this earth to know the dangers and possibly to recognize it a little differently. It's not a one size fits all answer there. I would say yes, if you are that parent that is in the bathroom. I can't even do that duck lip
She's
thing.
doing a selfie. For the listeners, she did a selfie.
I'm sorry, for the listeners, it's a selfie.
With the duck lips.
No, say it correctly, Ashley. With the most horrible duck lips. I do not know how to do it. My kids make fun of me. It's become a joke in the house to try to do it. So for all the listeners, you're probably thankful that you did not see the attempt. But if I am one of those parents that is really getting my self-esteem from the duck lips, from the social media, from the likes, then yes, modeling. But if I'm a parent like myself who uses my phone in healthy ways, such as through JustAnswer, then I don't know that the modeling in that way is so important. But let me expand and say, if during dinner time or during time together, whether it's playing pickleball or coaching my daughter in her softball, that I'm just stuck on my phone, then I think the modeling needs to come in. Mm-hmm. So there's that, again, if you notice, we're talking about balance and nuance. To just say the parent has to model that behavior, you're almost giving the child license to say, you see, you're on your phone, I'm allowed to also. Right. And it's different because, again, their prefrontal lobe is not as developed. They're not going to recognize the dangers as quickly as we are in terms of online predators, chatting with strangers, sextortion, sharing inappropriate photos.
Yep.
I'm going to be on my phone to do JustAnswer. I'm not sending nudes to anyone.
You make a really good point, especially like with the boundaries, because even for myself, I'll notice if I'm a little bit more stressed out, I'll be checking my phone a lot more, or even before bed, I might be kind of scrolling a little bit more. But then I also have this awareness, oh my gosh, I've been on my phone a little bit too much. And I'm starting to feel the effects of it. Teenagers or kids, they don't have that awareness.
Right. And let me ask you a question, Ashley. So when you say when you're stressed, you're checking your phone, what does the phone give you at that moment? What does your social media give you at that moment? Is it that sort of quick fix that, oh, okay, I am doing well in the world and I'm a healthy, functioning adult serving my clients well? What's going on at that moment?
To be honest, it helps me just check out. I have 3 little ones at home. I got a business that is rolling, and I'm just like burn out sometimes, and I look at my social media and I kind of scroll, and a lot of it I do for business. So I look on it to get inspired or creative, and I do notice that when I am more inspired or creative, I don't feel as stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I do use it as more of an escape, shut my brain down.
And so here's that difference. And I'm so glad you answered it in that way. And that goes back to what I said. The adult brain is able to use it in a different way. You're not there saying to me, you know what, Jen, I felt awful about my body today. And I was just looking to post that selfie, duck lips or not, and see how many likes I get. But the adolescent brain doesn't have that capacity yet. And so you're using it to check out. You're using it as a way to find some creativity, tap into a different space within yourself, and it becomes a positive thing. And I'm not saying it's all negative for kids. I'm not. There is connection. I have to grow up a little bit and come into this century and realize that there is a different way of connecting than bikes on the lawn. I get it. But there is that difference. And that's why the modeling behavior is a little bit different. And it can't just be, oh, well, mom, dad, whatever, you're on your phone, so I can be on mine. You're different, Ashley. You know why you're going. You're stimulated creatively. You're not looking at it as I'm going to post this duck lips, and if I don't get 747 likes, I can't go to bed.
Right.
Maybe the photo wasn't good. Let me take 70 more. And now it's 1 a.m, and your child is still looking for different poses. For all you people that are listening out there, I'm posing in different ways until, and trust me, they never find the perfect photo, ever.
No, they don't. I also see too, their friends commenting, you're so beautiful. What that reinforces, oh, I need to have a filter on, or I need to look a certain way to get that reinforcement, that feedback.
I love that you brought that up. So early on in my career, my specialty was treating people with anorexia and bulimia and body image issues. And I lectured around the country preventing it because I worked in an adolescent medicine unit and I was seeing very young girls and boys with fully diagnosed anorexia at very, very young ages. And it disturbed me. Why are we seeing these young kids? What's being done to prevent? And this was even before the advent of the cell phone. I think in those days, I still had the cell phone that was, clipped into the car, and it was big and chunky, and it looked like something from Lost in Space or something like that. But so I moved out of the clinical sphere for a little bit and went on the prevention end and was lecturing around the country to get a sense of what was going on for kids. And if you look at it back then, which is fascinating to what you're saying now, is that was even before the cell phone, that there was so much pressure on kids to look a certain way and getting that feedback. And then how much more deadly it's become because now using the phone. And the timing of this promo that I saw last night on our local news was talking about an increase in eating disorders due to cell phone use because young people are following influencers. Like you were saying, oh, you look beautiful, that they're finding that these influencers are having the ability to influence our young kids about how they're supposed to look, how they're supposed to dress, what their body type is supposed to look at. And I've been very passionate over certain subjects in my career, and this has been one of them. And it's always been for me about what our bodies can do for us rather than what they look like. And if you're out there playing pickleball or softball, tennis, golf, whatever your thing is, dance, and it's performing for you, that's really what we should be tapping into. And that beauty is only skin deep. Years ago, there was when I was living in New York, there was an ad campaign by a very, very large company that really had a play on words about beauty's only skin deep. And really their idea was that it is just skin deep and it should be only about what we looked at. And I went on a personal crusade there and contacted this very, very, very large institution of a brand. And they actually took the ad down after many, many months.
Amazing.
Go, Jennifer.
Right. This was years back. So I do believe that one voice or a collective voice can and should do things differently around cell phones, around social media, around educating our kids, also around letting them have that connection on some level, finding that healthy balance, and where we're not pushovers as parents. There's too many questions I get on Just Answer that indicate to me a fear of their child.
Right.
If they don't allow it, that, their child's going to be mad at them. Their child is going to hate them. And I always say to my kids, you know what? Hate me now and have great self-esteem. Later on in life, I do hope that you look back and say, you know what? Maybe it was some rough going a little bit, but I get it and I see why and I'm happier for it. And I can tap into skills or talents within me without needing a phone, a social media to know what I'm capable of as a human.
Well, that's our job, not to be their friend,
Right.
but to parent them. And they're not always going to like our advice or our
Correct.
guidance.
Or our boundaries.
They might not even see the long-term benefits yet of that, right? They're very short-term, here and now, right?
Right.
Is body image and eating disorders, is that one of the most common side effects of social media?
I love you, Nikki and Ashley. You guys ask the best questions. I love it.
Oh, good.
And because we could just go on. There's so many layers to that. And again, this one size fits all doesn't work, but there are things that we are seeing more. So there's definitely an increase in anxiety. Mm-hmm. There's definitely an increase in depression.
Right.
There's definitely an increase in feeling that pressure to conform to a certain body image, look a certain way, have the perfect duck lips, the pouty face, the tilted leg, whatever it may be. So it's a great question because yes, all those things. I don't know that I could say there's one thing, but a combination of increased anxiety for sure.
Yeah.
Depression. These feelings come when the likes aren't coming, when you've seen a post by a friend that beach day that you weren't invited to.
Right.
Let's also move into the area of educating our kids about the increase in stranger communication online, the pretending of, hey, I'm your 15-year-old friend who I saw you across the field. You remember we played travel soccer together, and it's nonsense. And it's really someone else. What they tap into is this anxiety and depression. They're crafty in the sense that no one can understand you but me. Mm-hmm. I know how hard it is at home with your parents right now, but I'm there for you. Mm-hmm. And while I'm there for you, send me that photo. And because, again, we go back to adolescent brains not being fully developed to no fault of their own, just the natural development of the physiology of our bodies, is drawn in because now they feel heard and understood. Meanwhile, they're just mirroring what they know that kid is needing at that moment.
Yeah.
And poof, off goes the nude or the suggestive photo. And then the next day they're met with a possible sextortion instance. And many of these kids are feeling so ashamed and embarrassed that they're not reaching out to their parents once that's happened. And then you're really on a slippery slope of suicidality.
I want to educate listeners if they don't know what sextortion is. It's when a victim is threatened or blackmailed into providing sexual imagery, or when a predator threatens to share the nude image with the public. And sometimes it's financial sextortion where the predator is demanding money in exchange for keeping the image private. And we know that this is happening a lot with kids and teens and also adults. And parents might want to know, what should I do and what should I be telling them so that they're aware of it?
So again, this is one of these spaces that has many layers to it. There are call centers set up in other countries specifically designed for this. If you feel as a parent or as a child that you can play on their having a heart and having empathy, no, because they are employed to do just that, to get the photo and then to extort for money. Yeah. So you can't go to them and appeal to a sense of decency because, again, this is what they are employed to do. So they're both. There's that employable space, and then there is that person who is not employed by a company to do just that, but who is looking for their own pleasure. So the first thing in terms of education is to start discussing with your children, not before they're teenagers, but much earlier, about the sending of photos. Once it's out of your reach, it is out of your reach. Mm-hmm. There is no delete button anymore. While it might be deleted from your phone, that could have been screenshotted, it could have been sent, could have been posted in a number of ways. And that photos are also doctored now. And kids' faces are being put on other bodies. Remember, there's a whole AI component to things now.
Yeah.
And so you might say to me, well, so Jennifer, should my child never send a photo of them and their friends hanging out? No, that goes a little overboard, but just that there, again, there's that balance and that nuance of knowing what exists out there. Talk to your kids about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate in terms of sharing about their bodies and what could possibly happen. But again, the most important is that your child feels that they can come to you when they've made that mistake, because all of our children are going to make mistakes through their journey. And if we are so strong in that boundary where they feel that they can't come to us, then we've lost the opportunity to help them in that moment. We need to, as we're educating them, to let them know that while we might feel shock, we might feel horror, we might feel devastation and worry, that we are still there for them. We are not going to shame them further, but we are going to do what we can to help them. Going to the police. Most children are afraid. Please don't go to the police. I don't want to be further embarrassed. But there are steps that reports need to be filed in order to help their child.
Absolutely. And this stuff is really scary for parents. And my reaction is, I'm going to wait as long as possible to give my kids a phone. And social media, a lot of parents are asking and wanting advice on, first of all, when do I give my kid a phone? And so let's talk about that a little bit. There was an article last week on CNBC. So a Yale University psychology professor, Laurie Santos, advised parents to wait as long as possible to give your kids a phone, citing that kids in the 8 to 12 age bracket who have phones spend nearly 5 hours a day, mostly watching videos or on social media, which can lead to poor mental health outcomes. Now, I know that every family is different, and I know that there's different levels of phones available, like the pinwheel or the bark phone, and those are stripped down, though those phones are often targeted and marketed to kids as young as 8. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, when kids should get a phone and kind of how you would answer that.
Again, another beautiful question. So because families are different in terms of, do they need access from school or after school if parents are working and they need to be in touch? So again, you can't say, well, the 8-year-old can't have it. They should definitely be 12 or 13 or whatever.
Right.
There's this wonderful organization called Wait Until 8th, which is really promoting about waiting until 8th grade to at least introduce the phone.
Okay.
I think, Pinwheel and Bark have done a great job. I mentioned earlier that both my kids have the Pinwheel phone. Certainly, would they like something different that isn't stripped down, but they understand that I really don't, at this point, have wiggle room around it. For them, the good news about my career and the bad news of my career. So for them, they wish I didn't know all the things that I know.
Right. Right.
But on the other hand, I do know these things, and I'm going to do what I can. And certainly, I've even had peer pressure from other parents saying to me, well, I disagree with your approach. When you finally let them loose, they're going to run rampant and they're going to do every bad thing that you didn't allow them to do. And all this, again, there's a balance, because it's not as if they have no contact or anything like that. But I do believe in waiting as long as you can. Again, that comes with the caveat of, if there are different circumstances based on, you need to get in touch with your child once they get on the school bus because you're at work or at home. Okay. So my answer to that is wait as long as you can. And then when you do, I don't think they need the phone with free reign and free access right away. I'm not slamming any company that gives that. I'm just saying that you as a parent find that happy medium. My happy medium is the Pinwheel phone. It allows me to monitor texts. I'm going to answer that already with your listener who's going to say, and trust me, parents have said to me as well, well, that's an invasion of their privacy. Okay. And for those that just are listeners, I just rolled my eyes because, our teenagers, yes, there's that balance of what's privacy. I'm not walking into their room while they're changing, but I also want to see and make sure they're safe and communicating appropriately. Am I always looking at their texts? No.
Yeah.
But if I feel that I need to, I have that in the parent portal with Pinwheel.
Yeah. And you can approve contacts, right? So they're only communicating with people that you said was all right.
That's correct. And what Pinwheel has done a great job with is you can sort of grow with the phone. So initially you can make it where only I can approve a contact. As they get older, if they're at school and they've made a new friend, or in their sports they made a new friend, they then have the ability to approve it as well. And I can make that change with a simple click of a button in the portal.
Okay.
The same thing with the app store, if you will, that they have. As they grow, as they develop, I can give them more apps. No, they're not on Snapchat or anything like that.
Because there's no social media on pinwheel phones or bark phones at all.
Right. But what they do have some apps which they give you pinwheel approved, or it will give you out of bounds. And so,
Right.
for example, my kids have Spotify. Pinwheel lets you clearly know what the issues are. And with Spotify, there is access to porn. You can find videos. You can find all this stuff. My kids know. I see them with that. Spotify's gone from their phone. At the same time, you're going to have a parent who's going to hear it and say, but they have natural curiosity. Yes, they do. And what I've said to them when they have this natural curiosity, let's talk about it and then see what's appropriate for you to sort of look at, read a book, explore in your own way that talks to you about your bodies, your crushes, your desires, what's happening in your body.
Sexuality.
That, correct. Thank you for helping me with the word there, sexuality. That allows them to do it in a way that isn't going to necessarily put them in harm's way. My kids love to make fun of me because I talk about the old days of the Encyclopedia Britannica that was in the bookshelf that we had to, go through the pages and look for things. For the time being, and again, my kids are 14, they're using the pinwheel, and that's just how it's going to be. Recently, my son has been playing pickleball at a pretty high level and playing in some tournaments he just played over this weekend, which is why I'm a little hoarse. So I started an Instagram page for him. Now, he does not have access to that on his phone. We do the posts together. He's allowed to take my phone and scroll with me to see who his followers, what they've said about his play. And the fascinating thing was when we were up at the tournament, some guy who I've never seen before, nor him, came up to him and said, "Hey, I follow you on Instagram. I love what you're doing. Your game is terrific."
Wow.
But again, that's managed. That isn't that stranger who's like, "Hey, Kyle, I want to, do this."
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is because I manage the account on a daily basis, at least 3 or 4 exotic, in quotes for those like exotic models
Right.
are following him every single time because I check it several times a day for him. Those are being blocked. But what's interesting is, so now let's say, okay, he is the one to manage it, not me. And I've given him that account. And he sees this exotic model and he's like, whoa, great. And God knows what's coming. I show them, I don't show them the nature of the text, but I say, oh, you got another one. Oh, you got another one. And
Right.
It's become like sort of this joke. But I show them just how accessible it is, that he doesn't even need to be putting himself out there other than just his pickleball journey. And yet still he's met with exotic models, reaching out, sending private messages.
Mm-hmm. We even had that on our
Yes.
Instagram with 40 followers, and I report them and Instagram does nothing about it.
Right.
And that's why it can be so scary to think about handing that over to our kids. I think you took a really interesting path with it and starting this profile for him around a specific interest, scrolling with him. They have to know that this stuff is going on. And so you're introducing it to him in this way that I think is very healthy, and people should think about how they can apply that with their own kid.
Well, I love that you're teaching him. You're also showing him like, these accounts are not good accounts. Let's block them. We don't know who they are, right? They're just some exotic model, but
Or
who
bot.
knows, right? Or bot, or, what call center in a different country. Or I love that you're sitting down with him and you're actually going through and you're teaching him, you're equipping him for, later on when those boundaries get a little bit more lax and you're growing with that, he knows what to do.
Exactly right. Thank you. And it's funny because his twin, my daughter, she doesn't have an account. And I joked with her. I said, I can make one for you for your softball. She's like, nah, I don't want it. But when he scrolls, we say, okay, hand her the phone now. She's just scrolling through his account, but it's still fun for her. She's looking at, the posts, and they're sort of getting their feet wet a little bit. They're getting some exposure to it, but it's in a controlled environment. And where, again, it isn't this just free reign and free access, because I think that is where the issues come up. And in any interview I've done, any podcast, any article, I will always give the analogy, and I am hardcore about this. Social media, and Ashley, you even said at the beginning, like you use it to check out. So, which is saying to me, it's giving you something. It's giving you a sense of calm. The same feel-good chemicals that drugs give our children are the same feel-good chemicals that are released when they are on their devices on social media. And so here is my one-liner that I always say. We don't go on the street and find the drug dealer and say, hey, give this to my kid. And yet, as a parent, we just hand over this device with free reign and free access and think that they can and should manage this on their own. No, again, you're going to have listeners that are going to say her boundaries are too tight. Her kid's going to go to college and, go nuts. Maybe. And then maybe we look back and say, okay, Jen, you were wrong. But it's really the only way I know right now. And again, giving, restricting, I think is the right balance. And the funny thing to reflect back is my kids now know, because of what I've taught them, that they will come to me on their own because they also have WhatsApp on it. Mm-hmm. And they will come to me and say, oh, I got this message. I didn't click on it. I didn't respond it, but I've kept it there so you can see and do what you're supposed to do with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're singing to my heart. I love that. Jennifer, that is so amazing, because that's it, right? That's it, where you have a relationship and a connection with your kids, that they trust you and they come to you. And also you made it a discussion. So you guys could talk about it and bring up social media every single day. I did a presentation with some freshman boys and on the safety of social media. And I talked about sextortion just for a little bit. And I asked them, I want to raise of hands. Do you guys know what sextortion is? And no one did. They had no idea. And it could have been just, the freshman boys not wanting to raise their hand. Sure.
Right.
But they had no idea what it is.
And I just think it's crazy that people would think those boundaries are too tight, because your kids are 14 and they have a device already, and they're being able to get some access to social media in a controlled environment.
Right.
That's not strict boundaries to me. We spoke with a mom of 4 last week named Liz, who's wonderful. And she didn't give her kids any social media until they were adults. And there was some regret there in not preparing them, because there was some overuse after the age of 18. Finding that place of how to give it to them, when to give it to them is really important. It sounds like this is the way to go. This is the way I would go.
Right. And it feels that way to me, whether, again, and the thing about parenting, we all know this, is there is no right and wrong way. It's just the way that works for us and our family. We can't, when you say, well, she had some regret, we sort of can't look back and say, that was the wrong thing, because there's really no way to know whether that was the wrong thing. Because if she gave it to them at 14, there could have been overuse then. When they're a little bit more mature and have that non-ancient brain where they can use it, and maybe it's overused for a bit, and maybe it's okay, it's not all it's cracked, but at least they're more mature and have better wisdom about what can happen. And just to reflect back about what you said about the boys with sextortion, that indicates to me that we as parents should be talking about things more. We cannot be afraid. We're not going to teach them how to do it just by talking about it.
Right.
And so let's give them the education. I mean, I've even given the education to my kids that what the buzzwords are going to be. You're going to get a text, some random text that's going to say, hey there, we haven't talked in a while. And they're going to go, oh, it's someone I know. So watch out for the hey there, or hi, saw you yesterday, whatever it may be, to teach them what the one-liner is going to be to pull them in. Because once you respond, you're hooked. They've got you.
What's the resistance in the parents? What do you see in the parents as the resistance on talking to their kids about social media or talking to them about the dangers?
Do they not feel educated enough on it to speak intelligently about it?
Or do they feel like their kid, it won't ever happen to their kid?
Yeah. I think it's a mix of all those things. I think that sometimes what I have found on Just Answer and in my private practice is parents are afraid to talk to their kids about, and I don't know if afraid is the right word, uncomfortable, let's say, uncomfortable, maybe not knowing, maybe not feeling as secure. Oh, I get this a lot. Jen, well, I'm not a therapist. I don't have that great lingo that you do. I don't know how to say it as like, Jen in Jen speak. It doesn't need to be Jen speak. It's your own speak. It's a combination of maybe not feeling as efficacious as they want to about a topic, worrying also that if they talk about it, are they going to put ideas in their head? Are they going to find it on another phone? And I check in, by the way, I'm going back to something. I check in with both my kids. Do you have accounts on a friend's phone? Do you have an account somewhere that I don't know about? No, no, no. Okay. Just so you know, I periodically do searches for you, as will the colleges, by the way, and you cannot delete it. So even if you come up with skinny mini 123, I'm going to find you a skinny mini 123, whatever it may be,
We can image search your face and find you.
Again, I'm not the internet police, if you will. I'm the balance maker there. So I do think we as parents can talk to our kids more, not be afraid of the topic, not be afraid of the pushback. There will be pushback.
Thank you.
You're ruining my life. I hate you. I have no friends because of you.
Right. You don't know what you're talking about.
You're from the Ice Age. Just ask Nikki and Ashley. They referred to you as, in decades and you know nothing. Kids don't roll up on bikes anymore on the lawn. I get all that. And they know I'm old fashioned. We make fun of it. Again, can't make duck lips for anything. But, I use a lot of humor in my education with kids. I make fun of myself. I believe in self-deprecation. I think it helps kids to see you as real and not just the internet or phone police. I want to educate them as best as possible. And I also talk openly that, you know what? Time will tell if this was the right course for you. I don't know a different way, but time will tell, meaning that maybe you go to college and you test those boundaries, which is normal. You should.
Right.
But hopefully you test them with the boundary in the background or the teachings at home that have said, you know what, I'm going to dip my toe in and have a test here, but I'm going to do it in a way that isn't necessarily harming to me long term or even in the short term right now. So again, it's the only way I know. Pinwheel's done a great job. That's why I use them. Time will tell.
How long have you used Pinwheel with your kids? When did they get Pinwheel? And then have you seen any benefits with your kids, them using Pinwheel?
So I think I gave it to them when they turned 12. And going back, I probably didn't answer this fully earlier. So if you're giving it to them at a younger age, usually that happens because you need to have access to them. So once they started doing after school sports, where it's, hey, mom, I'm here. Can you pick me up? Can you do this? That's when it felt appropriate. I think the benefits that I've seen is that they're not caught up in the missing out of something they might not have been invited to, or the likes, or their body image, or their mental health image and their emotional health tied to likes. I think that's the benefit. We do a lot in terms of sports, pickleball, softball, tennis. I want them out. I want to do stuff as a family. I don't want them gaining self-worth through some unnatural non-connection. Yes, the three of us right now are communicating through technology, but there is a depth of connection face to face that I don't believe a device or a social media app can give.
100%.
I also want my children to be able to shake someone's hand and look them in the eye and have a conversation. Right. And not have a bad neck where they're at a chiropractor's office because they're looking down all day and they've got text neck.
Yeah.
I think my kids are well-rounded. I think that they can communicate in a way with adults because they're not tied to it. They're not perfect. I'm not the perfect parent. Please don't anyone, end this podcast thinking, oh, well, she thinks she's got it going on. No, trust me, I've freaked out, psycho mom, all those things have been me, at times. And we all do what we think is right. Again, I go by my own one-liner. I will not walk to the street with my child and meet a drug dealer. So I'm not giving them free reign and free access. I'm giving them controlled access. And what is wrong with that? And as they grow, then maybe we graduate. As I see the maturity, as I see them responding well to more and more, then they get more and more because they've shown me that they can handle it.
I love that. Can we talk about sharenting really quick? So we've done a lot of research on child sexual abuse material and the skyrocketing rates of that type of content. You know, one thing parents can do to protect their kids from being exploited online is to not post them. So how do you feel about this topic, and should parents be sharing their kids on social media?
Again, this is that balance. So
Yeah.
I don't think it should be ever done without permission. And if your child says no, if we are giving them boundaries, then we need to respect when they put up a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And too often I see, I shouldn't be posting this. My child said no, or I'm posting it anyway. And look at this photo for all you listeners out there. My hand is covering my face. They're asking you not to. Yeah. And I think we need to respect that, because why is it about our need at that moment? Mm-hmm. So we need to tap into, what are we needing from the world at large? What are we needing from our friends on social media? What are we needing from the posting?
Yeah.
It then becomes about us. And I love the terminology of sharenting, because again, if we are setting boundaries and expect our children to respect what we've set, then we need to respect. And again, like if we're going back to the Instagram page that I manage, and if you look at it, it's interesting. It will say managed by my mom, so that people out there know that this is not free reign. You're not coming after my kids.
Great.
This is being managed. It says it right there in the profile. There is nothing that's posted. And again, this is about his pickleball journey and his hopes to play in college. No post happens, no photo happens without both of them being part of it and saying, let's write this together. Does that work? Do you like this photo? Do you like this photo? Don't post. Nothing. Because again, I will say this, how can we expect our children to follow our boundaries if we won't respect theirs around this issue of oversharing? And we're all guilty of oversharing. Like,
right.
There's something beautiful about having some privacy.
Right. And we're taking that away from the kids by sharing them. And Ashley and I both shared our babies and kids for years and then stopped. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm not judging anybody, but just have to say out loud that babies and young children can't give informed consent on sharing their identity online. And so we need to think about that before we're posting them.
Right. And I like what you said. We're not shaming anyone. This conversation for this last hour is not about shame. It is about opening up our minds to possibly a different way to look at things, help your children be safe in the world, and give them the tools to navigate this very, very, very tough space for them. It's impossible. We did not have that growing up. They're in a tough space. So let's help them and give them the tools to do it in a way. And again, if your child says, no, don't post, please respect that and tap into your own need and to see what's going on with me that I feel the need to do this.
One more thing, I wanted to talk about phones in schools. So you wrote into an article that shared that 97% of kids use their device during school hours. I guess that's if they have a device, they use it during school hours. Now, the UK is about to pass legislation not allowing children to use their phones at school, even during breaks. So do you think that no phones at school is a good step to help manage their dependence on phones?
I think that if we reflect back on this last hour, you can see that I'm not hard and fast about any one thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone should be. The UK is different than the United States, and I hate to talk about gun violence and what's happening. I would hate for a school to say no phones. The schools, my kids have to put their phone in a basket at the start of class. I'm not a fan of that. I don't like it because of this emergency issue.
Yeah.
I think that if schools really want to clamp down, they should start with the computers that are given out.
Thank you.
Because while the teacher is at the front of the room, please open up your computers now. We're going to work on an English assignment. And I've seen my son on watching football on YouTube.
Oh, I hear it all the time. I know.
So these schools aren't able to control it. But I think if your child's at a school that uses a device, uses a tablet, computer, whatever, there should be better controls on that computer where they can't have access. Again, I'm not all for complete restriction because of a safety issue. I think you can say to your class, your phones are in your bag right now, or they're in your pocket. They need to be silenced. And if I see you on it, you get half a point off your next quiz before you even start. Mm-hmm. And if I see you on the computer, if you're on Discord or any other nonsense, again, half a point off. And that the parent signs that contract with the school. So more can be done as opposed to this, all or nothing. There are gray areas. Let's not be this all or nothing plan.
Mm-hmm. I'm struggling with the schools as well. My kids in kindergarten, first grade, they have Safari internet browser on their tablets in class, and it's somewhat restricted, but they can get on YouTube, full on YouTube. It's inappropriate content for even a fifth grader, I think, but the schools are behind, just like legislation is behind in controlling this whole thing. And a lot of it's left up to the teachers. And I think some teachers, I guess, are like, the best way I can handle this is for you all to give me your phones, because they're not getting instruction from the districts or the government on how.
100%. I agree with that.
Teachers are overwhelmed. They've been dealing with so much over the last few years, a rise in behavioral issues as well. And so now teachers have become the therapist, the teacher, the homework police, the phone police, and it's a lot for them, which is why it needs to come higher up, where there is this school policy where your kindergartner should not have access to Safari or anything like it. During school hours, you'll have a teacher say, well, no, we use YouTube because they have to watch, something on Julius Caesar, and it's this video on YouTube. There is, again, that happy balance. Mm-hmm. But I think teachers are in a tough spot. They're exasperated, and it's just easier to be like, here's the basket, put your phone in, blah, blah, blah. Easier.
Yeah.
But I do feel that schools could do a bit better and figure out some way to find that balance.
Agree. Okay, Jennifer, is there anything else we missed around this topic that's really important to share with parents?
Yeah. We could go for days. I mean, because this,
I know.
This has so many tentacles to it. And so it extends out far past self-esteem, anxiety, depression, how to parent, what is healthy parenting. We as moms, I think all of us, everyone who's listening, have gone to bed at night thinking we are the worst parent in the world for how we've chosen to do things or when we've lost our minds. Again, to leave everyone with, there is no one size fits all approach. Find that boundary, find that healthy balance for what works for you. Please be open with your children, be vulnerable about your own mistakes, how you want to support them, giving them their independence while also giving them some sort of control over just free reign and free access. And give yourself a pass at the end of the day. We are all doing the best that we can. There is a lot going on for our children right now. Tons of pressure, college pressures, getting into the best schools, this and that, social media, friend groups. Just let's all take a collective breath and know that we're all doing the best that we can. But for me, it's always about communication. Healthy relationships have great communication. Don't be afraid to communicate and be vulnerable.
Yeah. Love that.
Jennifer, you are wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
You guys are terrific.
Thank you. Can you remind people where you're at on Just Answer? What's your handle there?
Yes, so justanswer.com. And then if you started a question, you could write for Therapist Jen only. That's my handle, Therapist Jen, and it will come to me. And then you can place me in your favorites. See, it's like a social media kind of thing. Place me in your favorites and get back to me easily.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Scrolling to Death. We loved speaking with Jennifer today. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. We sure did. Give us a follow to get an update when we have a new episode, and we will talk to you all next time. Thanks.